That initial let them feels like instant mental permission to just drop the internal fight. It's like you've stopped furiously paddling against a current you can't beat. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take these simple concepts, these social media mantras that just capture global attention, and we figure out if they're truly profound psychological breakthroughs.
Or just clever pop psychology.
Exactly. And today, we are diving into the let them theory, or LTT.
And this thing isn't just viral. It's an absolute phenomenon. It struck a really profound nerve. Our sources show the theory generated something like 15 million views across different platforms.
13 million.
Yeah, and it inspired a New York Times bestselling book, got high-level validation from people like Oprah, who praised its ability to, really shift personal perspective.
That kind of reach, that validation, it means people are actively searching for this kind of cognitive tool. So our mission today is to unpack this deceptively simple phrase, let them.
Right.
Is it genuinely life-altering emotional freedom? Or is it maybe ancient wisdom just cleverly repackaged for our instant fix culture? We need to know what the sources say about how it works and also where its limits are.
So the initial synthesis confirms it's effective because it is a simple, very accessible mindset tool, and it's designed specifically for cognitive and emotional regulation.
Okay.
The core promise of LTT is basically to reduce the immense unnecessary stress and that pervasive frustration that we create for ourselves through one really futile activity.
Yeah, that is.
Attempting to manage the external world, especially the choices and the feelings of everyone around us.
Okay, let's unpack that with some real-life friction.
Yeah.
Because we all know those external annoyances that just immediately start draining our batteries.
Oh, yeah. Think about the internal energy sink. Maybe you have a coworker who, insists on taking credit for your great ideas in meetings.
Oh.
Or you're just stuck in traffic, you're already late, and you're watching somebody aggressively cut you off only to slam on their brakes 100 feet later.
The instant reaction is that familiar internal scream, right? You start rehearsing the argument you wish you could have, or you obsessively monitor that coworker, just waiting for the next betrayal.
And that's the draining part.
Yes.
Exactly. And the theory says that when people show you who they are through those actions, or, and this is important, through their inaction, like a friend who won't live a bad relationship, you simply say, let them.
And the initial benefit is immediate.
It is. It's a cognitive stop mechanism that just halts that spiraling obsession over someone else's behavior, some uncontrollable circumstance.
That initial let them feels like instant mental permission to just drop the internal fight. It's like you've stopped furiously paddling against a current you can't beat.
That's a great way to put it.
But the sources are clear that the theory's real power is based on its mandatory binary structure. It's not just a release, it requires a pivot.
It absolutely does. And this is the crucial distinction that separates LTT from just, resignation. The first step, let them, is the surrender phase. It's telling yourself to stop fighting external reality.
So let the coworker be ambitious and unethical.
Right. Let the traffic jam take its time. Let my daughter be frustrated with her homework. It's just acceptance of the current fact.
And then the second part, the let me, that's where the power shifts entirely back to you, the individual.
Precisely. Once that external acceptance is established, the focus has to pivot entirely inward. The let me phase is the active, constructive response.
So it's not passive.
Not at all. The individual takes radical responsibility for their own response, their own actions. This is what ensures the theory isn't just passive allowance of chaos. It's an active assertion of self-control.
Okay, let's use that stressful traffic example to show the practical shift. You've just been cut off, your internal temperature is spiking. How does the let me response look here?
Well, instead of engaging in road rage, which, as the sources note, means you just gave your internal power to a stranger, the let me response means choosing an alternative, a constructive action entirely within your control. So you recognize, I cannot control that driver or this delay, so you choose. Let me use this time to listen to a new segment of this audiobook, or let me practice a breathing exercise I learned.
The moment you make that constructive choice, the situation hasn't changed at all, but your internal state has. You restore your sense of agency immediately.
Yes.
What's fascinating here is that this shift from external obsession to internal action is a textbook psychological mechanism. It's something that really underpins mental well-being.
That's right. This dual mechanism separating the controllable let me from the uncontrollable let them directly reinforces what psychologists call an internal locus of control.
For those of us less familiar with that jargon, what exactly does that mean in everyday life, an internal locus of control?
It's just the belief that you are primarily responsible for your outcomes rather than luck or fate or the actions of others.
So when that rude driver is controlling your emotions,
You are operating from an external locus of control, which, well, it often results in helplessness, anger, and anxiety. LTT forces you to move away from manipulating the external toward mastering your internal.
and the research is clear on this.
It's very clear. People with a strong internal locus of control report significantly greater resilience and, importantly, reduced chronic anxiety.
Now, when something this simple goes this viral, the critics inevitably arise. And the most common critique we see is that LTT is just stoicism repackaged for a quick mental fix.
Stoicism in a new bottle.
So I want to know, is this simply ancient wisdom? And if so, why is the repackaging so effective right now?
Well, the lineage is deep, it's robust, and it's often explicitly acknowledged by the authors. This isn't really a novelty. It's a sophisticated meta-framework that's been optimized for practical, modern consumption. It draws on several really reliable traditions.
Okay, so let's detail those historical and clinical connections for us, starting with the one critics love to cite.
First, Stoicism. The entire LTT concept is a functional implementation of the Stoic dichotomy of control.
Right.
This foundational principle, taught by figures like Epictetus, separates what is within our absolute power, our judgments, our desires, our actions, from everything external.
Which includes other people's behavior.
Exactly. Other people's behavior, their reputation, even our own health to some extent. The let them mandate is just the operational instruction to surrender that external fight.
So the Stoics knew that internal peace starts the moment you stop wasting effort on the uncontrollable.
Precisely. And second, it aligns very strongly with Eastern thought, specifically the Buddhist principle of non-attachment.
Okay, non-attachment.
The teaching asserts that suffering doesn't arise from bad things happening. Suffering arises from clinging to expectations about how things should be.
So if you expect your partner to always be on time or your boss to always recognize your efforts.
The moment they fail to meet that expectation, you create suffering for yourself.
In other words, suffering happens because we insist reality must conform to our personal demands, and LTT is the tool to accept reality as it is.
Exactly. And then clinically, it draws on established therapeutic modalities. For example, using LTT in these high-stakes, painful situations, like finally accepting a divorce or a diagnosis, that's a direct parallel to radical acceptance.
Which is used in dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT.
Right. DBT is a form of cognitive behavioral therapy often used to help people manage intense emotions. And radical acceptance is key to that.
So what is it exactly?
It's accepting painful, uncontrollable facts as reality, without judgment, without fighting, and without trying to change what can't be changed. That acceptance forms the basis for the let them step.
It's only when you stop fighting reality that you can build a productive response.
Yes. And for relationships under extreme stress, like those involving addiction, the theory taps into something else.
And it is.
Detachment theory. This is about creating the necessary emotional distance for a caregiver or a loved one to manage their own emotional health and really to prevent codependency. LTT provides the mechanism for that crucial separation.
Okay, so LTT comes from the same author who popularized the 5-second rule, that famous countdown for immediate action. How do these two tools work together?
They're synergistic. They form a comprehensive cognitive behavioral approach. I mean, think of it this way. What stops you from taking action? It's not usually physical inability.
It's the emotional barrier,
Yeah.
the fear of judgment, the stress of a potential confrontation.
Right. We get stuck in the emotional muck. Let them addresses that emotional barrier. By surrendering control over the outcome, you clear the mental runway.
And once that emotional block is gone,
Then the let me component can use the 5-second rule to resolve the behavioral hesitation. It ensures the necessary action, setting a boundary, pursuing a goal is executed immediately before that internal resistance can rebuild.
it links emotional acceptance to immediate intentional action. So here's where the theory translates into massive relief for you, the listener. The real-world application, starting with relationships and energy. The sources highlight a profoundly difficult truth, that often we are not in a relationship with the person as they are, but with their potential.
That is the core of so much relationship frustration. We invest massive emotional energy trying to drag someone from their current reality to their ideal potential. LTT forces you to deal with the reality of who someone is showing you they are right now.
Because if you're constantly trying to change or fix a partner, you're not in the actual relationship.
No, you're in a ghost relationship that exists only in your imagination, and that struggle is exhausting. It's often fruitless because you're trying to control someone else's internal decision-making engine.
Let them be who they are so you can deal with the reality.
So you can make an informed choice about whether you want that reality in your life. LTT turns the focus from trying to change them into a decision about what you need.
And for the chronic people pleasers out there, those of us who feel responsible for everyone else's happiness, this is a real intervention.
Absolutely. People-pleasing stems from a fear of others' negative emotions, fear of disappointment, fear of anger. LTT helps shatter that fear.
So if you decline an invitation because you're exhausted and your friend reacts poorly,
The theory says, let them be disappointed, let them be upset. The focus pivots immediately to, let me make decisions that support my well-being and honor my own boundaries.
that concept of reclaiming energy leads directly to what the sources call the freedom equation.
Yes, by ceasing that exhausting, never-ending cognitive struggle to micromanage external reality, you free up massive mental and emotional energy.
Think about the measurable cost of rumination.
Every time you rehearse an argument with a coworker or mentally critique a family member's poor choice, you are burning cognitive fuel. This is energy you could have used for focused work, for creativity.
It sounds like a constant low-grade internal warfare.
It is, and the reduction in that cognitive load is the measurable dividend. This reclaimed energy gets redirected to internal self-management, establishing new goals, developing better habits, or just finding some tranquility.
It yields clearer boundaries, reduced reactivity, more resilience.
You stop wasting time on things you can't control, and you put that effort toward actively building the life you want within your own sphere of influence.
Okay, let's discuss the most challenging application the source material addresses.
Yeah.
Dealing with a loved one, struggling with addiction. This is where the simple mantra gets incredibly tough.
This is the peak difficulty because the stakes can be life and death. The let them mandate here is based on the clinical truth that forcing someone into treatment is, well, it's rarely successful if the motivation isn't internal.
So for the caregiver, let them means accepting that painful reality.
It means accepting if somebody is not ready to go to rehab, let them. If somebody relapses, let them. This is not an act of malice. It's an act of acknowledging reality to preserve your own sanity.
And the necessary self-protecting let me response for the caregiver.
The caregiver must prioritize their own safety, their emotional boundaries, their financial health. They use LTT as a detachment tool to prevent codependency, to stop the endless cycle of enabling.
They wait until help is genuinely requested.
Yes, and they often ensure that any resources they control, money, housing, are applied to support recovery, not to fund the destructive behavior.
Okay, this theory is clearly powerful, but we have to introduce the crucial caveats. When is let them dangerous or inappropriate or just plain negligent? This isn't permission to just disengage from life.
The guidance from the sources is very explicit on this. You should not apply LTT if someone is doing something actively dangerous.
Like drunk driving or threatening harm.
Exactly. You must actively intervene, and you must also speak up if you need to advocate for yourself. Salary negotiation, demanding proper medical care. That is the let me component in action. It's speaking your truth.
And the third critical caveat, if someone is continually violating your boundaries, you don't just let them do that.
Correct. And that raises the single most important misconception. Does let them mean passive tolerance of bad behavior?
Does acceptance mean allowance?
Emphatically no. Letting someone be who they are does not mean tolerating mistreatment.
Okay, help us clarify that distinction. Tolerance versus acceptance.
Tolerance is rooted in the external. It's saying, I have to put up with this because I can't change it and I don't want the friction of setting a boundary. Acceptance, in the LTT sense, is rooted in the internal.
How so?
It's saying, I acknowledge I cannot change this person's nature, but I absolutely can decide what role I want them to have in my life or if they have one at all.
So acceptance leads to action, while tolerance just leads to resentment.
Precisely. The LTT process for mistreatment is always 2 steps. First, let them acknowledge the reality of their disrespectful behavior. This is who they are. Then, let me choose a self-honoring response.
Which might be setting a firm boundary, or distancing yourself, or just ending the relationship.
Yes, setting boundaries is fundamentally an act of honoring yourself, and it is one of the most powerful actions in the Let Me toolkit. It's about controlling your environment, not their decisions.
Finally, let's quickly summarize the external critiques of the theory we found in the source material.
The main critique revolves around its intense individualistic focus. While it's powerful for personal resilience, a reliance purely on mindset changes might discourage the hard work of negotiation and compromise.
which are required in any healthy, interdependent relationship.
Right. Marriages, partnerships, organizations. This is contrasted with a concept like relationalism, which argues that true happiness requires balancing autonomy with mutual obligation.
And the other risk, the simple sound bites could become an emotional shortcut.
That's the avoidance trap. The worry is that the mantra's simplicity might be used to suppress or avoid necessary emotional pain or self-reflection pain that is often crucial for deep psychological growth. True autonomy means facing discomfort, not just dismissing it with a phrase.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The core takeaway is that the let them theory is most powerful, not because it magically changes the world around you, but because it gives you a clean, clear separation between your internal agency and all that external chaos.
You get to decide where your precious energy goes.
Exactly.
And for maximum efficacy, LTT must always lead to action. You stop struggling to control others, and you must start directing that reclaimed energy back toward intentional choices that reinforce your own personal integrity and well-being.
It transforms acceptance from a passive state into an act of active self-direction.
Yes.
I'm going to leave you with one final thought to explore. The authors of LTT co-authored specialized guides to apply the theory, including a specific parenting guide developed with Dr. Stuart Ablon from Harvard, focuses on constructively influencing behavior without relying on coercion or yelling. So if LTT is effective for leaders and parents to guide others by mastering their own responses, how could you apply the let me component, focusing on resource control, environment setup, your response, to influence one person in your life you currently feel the most anxious or frustrated about?
That is for another day.
We'll talk to you next time.